I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, September the 29th, brought to you in part by Livestock Risk Services. Dakota Moss there with the head office in the Livestock Exchange building of the Oklahoma National Stockyards there in Oklahoma City. He's the LRP specialist. He's got several other agents working with him all around that area. They are licensed to sell LRPs in about half the states of the Union and all your major cattle states. If you guys are background in cattle, and I know it's going to be tough with the lack of forage, and I know we're on tight numbers and we expect the market to be good, but you look at those prices, those strike prices out there that you can lock those in. They look pretty handsome. You can also get LRPs on calves, even calves that aren't born yet. You can lock in your price on those calves, and those strike prices are pretty handsome too. Going to cost you a pretty good premium, but you can get the USDA to come in and kick in 35 to 55% of that premium to help you out, and it's an awfully good program. If you guys are interested in that, get a hold of LivestockRiskServices.com. Wasted floodwaters. Hurricane Ian come into Florida just like we knew it was going to, and I mean it hammered. It was not estimated to be more than what it was. They knew it was going to be bad, and it was bad. You guys have seen the coverage too. Some of those places there through the center part of Florida are going to get 20 to 30 inches of moisture. My God, couldn't we use that moisture somewhere else? I mean, your Midwest, your Plains, and your West are all terribly dry and in desperate need of some moisture, and we've got all those floodwaters that are going to be wasted. I mean, we've got people's homes being flooded in them. There's a lot of cattle production in the area that the storm went right through there. Like I told you on the last visit, that storm passed between Okeechobee and Orlando. Big time cattle production out there. I'm sure there's lots and lots of drowned cattle out there. Not sure if we'll see any of that coverage on our news channels there, but you can just trust there's going to be a lot of drowned cattle out there, probably a lot of drowned people out there, and we hate it for everybody that had loss of property and loss of life, but it's a tough deal. But probably more than anything, what we hate is just the wasted flood waters that could be so beneficial to areas. When that storm first started swirling down there in the Caribbean, you know, the guys in Texas were just praying that the storm would come up and hammer South Texas and go up in to the central part of Texas and Oklahoma and areas and give some much needed rainfall, but it's hitting an area that doesn't need it, doesn't want it, and can't stand it. But it's going to be really bad. The storm was a Category 3. It turned into a Category 4 and nearly 5 before it finally hit land there. But out here in California, Alturas, California, here on Wednesday night late, and I had a huge crowd of feeder flash gang members, people that were interested in better health for their cattle. The meeting was sponsored by Beringer Ingelheim and the local vet here in Alturas, and just a really good meeting, and people were asking questions, and they were interested, and they were attentive, and met some really good friends there, and people that enjoy this program, and people that haven't seen it before that probably are going to start tuning in on a regular basis, we hope. But it is terrible dry in Northern California and Southern Oregon, and my goodness, we just went by some places. Of course, if you guys haven't been out in this part of the country, they've got irrigation canal system out here that makes them as productive as they are. Both irrigation for livestock production and for crops, but there's just not been enough water in the reservoirs for most places to have any, and the irrigation allotments have been restricted. Some of them cut off completely. We were traveling around, we crossed over Lake Shasta there, which is a big source of irrigation water for this part of the country, and it was pitiful. I mean, just almost completely empty. And the surface of the water was hundreds of feet from your boat ramps, from the areas you could tell that where it normally ran, and just really pitiful to look at. But these guys are raising cattle in this part of the country in the desert, and it's of course terrible dry between here and all the way to the center part of the Midwest. Eastern part of the Midwest is not quite so bad, but that's one reason that we're not getting a big bin buster of a crop, because it was so dry through the mid part and late part of the summer. And now our wheat pasture prospects are looking pretty dim, as we had enough moisture in most areas to kind of get the dryland wheat up, but not nearly enough to keep it going. And now we're not going to be able to turn cattle out even this fall. It'll probably be first of the year before you can turn cattle out in most areas on the dryland winter wheat pastures. But talk about your board. On Wednesday, October live cattle futures were down again, down 52 cents at 143.05. December down 62 cents at 146.27. Your back months were mostly lower, from 67 lower, and you went all the way to your farthest month, traded month out, and that's February of 24, and they were actually up 15 cents. But your speculators, your big investors that we rely to be on the long side of your live cattle futures, they're just scared about the demand going forward with the oncoming and likely already recession, the poor fundamentals, your economics, our economy's in bad shape, and just really worried about demand. Myself, I've seen the demand go through the pandemic. We've seen demand stay good through tough times already. Likely the people who are in the roughest economic situation, they're not buying your higher cuts already. They're still going to be able to buy a $6 or $7 cheeseburger at their fast food joint, get their 12-pack of beer and their pack of smokes, which that's what they're going to get, and that's what they're going to get even in the good times. But for the most part, I think your people that are squarely in the middle class, and of course those that are higher up, are still going to eat beef. They're still going to demand it. They might eat it at home. They've learned how to do that through the COVID, and they're doing more of that. They may not go out to the restaurants, which could hurt things some, but we're going to have excellent export demand. We're expecting that to continue. Talk about feeder cattle contracts. September was down 32 cents. It's just looking to kind of settle right in there with your CME index, which is running at a $2 premium, the latest available, but it's going to come down because your real-time index, which is always up to date and current and has more cattle in it, it's running a buck lower than what your September feeder cattle contract is running at 175.37. October feeders down $1.12 at 175 smooth. Back months on feeder cattle contracts down 50 cents to down $1. Corn and beans continue to be fairly steady as we're going through harvest here. Corn contracts ended regular trading up 3 cents at 6.70 and a half cent a bushel for new crop. Beans up 3/4 cent at 14.08 and 3/4 cent a bushel. Fat cattle trade continued, and we've established the market mostly steady. Everybody was expecting, and I think the packers were even hinting that we could get an extra dollar. Maybe not in the southern plains, but maybe an extra dollar in the northern plains this week. But with the board being down and just kind of your negative economic news, we didn't get that. But we got steady, and steady might be a victory this week. Colorado was confidential, of course. Iowa had confirmed sales of 8,700 head on Wednesday, from 143 to 147. That's right in there with steady with last week. Dress sales could be called a bit higher on the top side, from 228 to 233. Nebraska, 21,600 head. And if you remember, confirmed sales on Tuesday were nothing. But huge movement in Nebraska, 21,600 head. That's a good part of what they typically sell there on a good week, but 144 to 147. Dress sales had a curious bottom at 225.60, which you normally don't see odd quotes like that up to 233 on the top side of dress quotes. Kansas, 2,100 head confirmed on Wednesday, all at 143, which was steady, and a little bit of dress trade in northern part of Kansas at 228. Texas, 900 head confirmed on Wednesday at 143. Box beef cutout values continue to fall. We keep expecting them to find a bottom here. Seasonally, it's time for them to find a bottom. That could be a good part of the negative push on your live cattle futures too. But choice cuts on Wednesday afternoon down 88 cents at 247.55. Selects down $2 at 219.21. Slaughter still pretty respectable, 380,000 through the first 3 days of the week. That's 2,000 less than last week, 24,000 more than the same week a year ago. Talk about what else is going on. National Beef Wire is your best website to go to find beef and cattle market information. You can get this report there every day, every business day. Lots more market information and real-time quotes there. Big strings of cattle that's sold in markets all over the country. All types of beef and cattle news on there. You can sign up for the free electronic newsletter. Doesn't cost you a thing. Just sign up for it, and it'll be sitting in your inbox whenever you get time to look at your email each day. It'll have this report on it. It'll have lots of market information and market news. NationalBeefWire.com. Talk about your feeder cattle market. Your real-time index on DV auction late in the day on Wednesday sit at 174.54, down $1.65. And your markets were tough a week ago. But, I mean, they just took the legs out from a real-time index. It's a 7-day moving average with tons of cattle in there because it's getting the time of the year where cattle moving. Even though we're seeing lighter receipts and lighter numbers of feeder cattle and calves, our receipts are still pretty good because guys are so dry they're just having to bring cattle to town early, and they've already brought a lot of cattle to town, bringing calves in lighter and mostly unweaned. It's hurting them on the market there. Talk about your big sales on Wednesday. OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, 6,600 head. Pretty good receipts right there. Bigger than last week, bigger than last year. But the numbers aren't out there. They're just bringing them to town earlier, guys. We're seeing that mid-October run right now. We aren't seeing the big swings in your temperatures yet, so maybe it's a good time to buy some of those calves and get them backgrounded. But with no place to turn those cattle out for winter forage, that's why the market's suffering, and it's worse on the calves. But feeders in El Reno, Oklahoma sold $5 to $7 lower. That's tough. Calves were $8 to $12 lower. Good market reporting there, so you can trust those quotes. Winter livestock, Dodge City, Kansas sold 3,000 head. Mostly calves there selling $8 to $10 lower. Talk about your Zoetis stick-out sale of the day. No surprise, it was Bassett Livestock Auction in Bassett, Nebraska. 2,400 head of feeders there. It was mostly bigger yearlings selling. It wasn't a calf special. Mostly bigger yearlings, and they still got those, and still excellent demand, especially in the in the northern plains there, and especially by farmer feeders. They're in the market there, and then they love to go to Bassett and buy those really top quality cattle and the hard yearlings that they're not going to have any problem with, paying big prices, bigger than anywhere else, guys. Look at this automated market report, and you see there's not many calves moving there in Bassett. This Wednesday, I assume they'll be having calf specials here on their next sales coming up. But best tested weights, 336 head of 8-weight steers, averaged 865 on all of them with a weighted average price of 187.28. Wow. Compared to 2 weeks ago, these feeders were steady to $8 lower, but still very, very impressive. 1,308 head of 9-weight steers in Bassett, averaged 930 pounds at 185.13 on 9 weights, guys. Talk about your heifers. 316 head of 8-weight heifers in Bassett, averaged 853, weighted average price of 173.01. Give you some individual quotes. How about Creston Livestock Auction in Creston, Iowa? Pretty good sale for them. The Weiss cattle there, 65 head, 806 pound steers at 187.75. that'd be sure $10 higher than what your index values are, guys. And a calf quote at a Buffalo livestock auction in Buffalo, Wyoming. Don't get to talk about them very often, but they've got good cattle there, and they can sell them too. 122 head, 510-pound steers in Buffalo, Wyoming, bring $216.50. But the best quote that I saw anywhere on Wednesday in your Macrocin, no BS, top quote for the day, indeed come out of Bassett Livestock Auction, Bassett, Nebraska, was 104 steers, weighed 1,007 pounds at 184.75. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.